I'm going to bring up some questions, but I'd like to have a panel of people that I'm going to pick on you. You can say no, and I appreciate that. Because what we want to do is have the panel answer the question, and then we're going to open up the question to anybody else that wants to contribute. Now, we have a series of questions. We may get through them all, we may not. The whole point of this is to share best practices for emergency communications. Now, that's areas that could, and some people are in RACES, and some people are in a mix of an OXCOM thing, so we called it ECOMM. So that's what we're trying to do tonight. Oscar, you represent the islands and the problems that happen on islands. Could you be one of the people in the panel?
Yeah, please.
I'll pick on you. Okay. I'd like to, Lee, when she comes in, would be in because she's part of the people who got involved with creating this. Steve, K3DSO, could you come in from your experience in the DC area?
Yes, absolutely.
And Bob, WX2NJ, I see you a few pages back, Bob. Could you come in from your experience of 20 years and with Sandy?
Yeah, I'll try.
That's all we ask. Okay, and are you using, Dan, are you using Barry to take care of chat or something?
Yes, he'll be watching the chat and
Okay.
taking care of some of the stuff there for us.
Okay, Barry, if you have anything, just pop in because you have all the experience with the down along the Florida area. So we'll start with that group first. Do I have permission to do the share screen, Dan?
Yes, you do.
Okay. You have to bear with me for a minute, people. Okay. Now, we had a brainstorming session with the planning team, some of which are in here tonight and some of which, most of them are here. And we came up with some of these topics, but I set them up in categories and I'm going to through the category. And if you have something that we don't get to tonight, at the end, there'll be an email address you can mail it to in case we do this again, and we'll put it on the list. Voluntary selection. What are the most effective methods of recruiting ECOMM team members? Panel, I'll first go down to Oscar and see how you do, okay?
Well, it is a question of training and practice, and the leaders will rise out, but definitely during the emergency is when you see the real leadership and give you a real experience. So it's a combination of both. But practice and the way they handle things and the way they express, when they become these leaders and they stand up during the drills, that's when you know where people are really ready to work, and that is really very good. Back to you, Tom.
Okay, Bob, WX2NJ, could you take a shot at that?
Well, recently, Tom, one of the most effective methods is keeping people really busy. We've had a lot of volunteers recently that have been working HF, especially NVIS, every week. And I would say they've been working every weekend for months and months and months on end. And these guys never want to quit. I've never seen so much participation before in Aries by some of these people. And it just seems like if you give them the free rein to go out there and do what they want to do, they seem very satisfied and they seem to attract more people.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of those sessions. That works out good. Okay, Steve, how about you down in the DC area?
Well, as far as recruiting goes, you know, we have done numerous different things. Our most successful has actually been to attending other clubs' meetings through our members, contacting other members, club members, and getting folks that way. We have tried direct mailings and we get very little response. We have put newsletter items in newsletters and get very little response. So basically it's going to other clubs' meetings and association repeater groups and things like that.
Lee, did you get in here yet? No, okay. Okay, open it up to anybody. Does anybody want to add something to this?
Check.
Just, okay.
Hello, WA2JOE here.
Okay.
I think one of the things that attracts people is an active membership. So for instance, I'm in Monmouth County, New Jersey, and a shout out to WX2NJ, who's just south of me. And you know, our local Aries is not very active at all. And so we kind of hitch on to Middlesex County, which is north of us. So a crowd attracts a crowd is one way we put it. And so one of the keys to attracting, at least I have found, and I am not in Aries leadership, but you know, I do try to recruit for it, is, you know, people say, well, what's your group doing? And, you know, they're looking for things to do. They want an active, well-organized group, and that tends to be very effective in recruiting from my experience. Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else?
I can say something real quick, Tom.
Go ahead, Barry.
You have to have a mission. Just drilling for drilling's sake is not going to keep active members, but having a mission will help tremendously in attracting volunteers who will stay busy because you actually have a defined mission. We don't want to be accused of having a solution, looking for something to fit into. We have to have something to work with and work towards. And once you have that, you'll get members. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Barry. Okay,
Tom?
go right ahead.
Yeah, this is Tim, KD2EGR. I'm the EC in Atlantic County and also for Aries. I guess, you know, this is important to hear right now because we are actively pursuing additional team members as well. I was interested in going to other meetings. That's a little bit of a difficulty for us with COVID. We have a number of different groups around and we're trying to call people that we know from their membership lists. That's one. I'm interested in perhaps hearing more from Barry about the mission. I understand having a mission, but what is it that's working for you, Barry, if you wouldn't mind? Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Got with agencies and got them to write us into their emergency plans and their drills. So when they have drills, we have members and we have reasons to test our equipment. Otherwise, we're just a group of people looking for something to do. And so if you have to have an agency or a specific group that gives you something that will fulfill their mission that we're trying to work to help them towards, that helps. So when we try to drill, we try to make our drills so there's a measurable outcome for the members to take pride in other than testing their radio equipment.
Okay,
Well, that's real good for me. We have weekly practice drills and we've been reviewing those lately because they're a little bit sort of family oriented, if you know what I mean. A lot of folks talk about their day and a lot of other things, and we're trying to get that more focused on talking about what we need to do, when we need to do it, and so forth. As a matter of fact, before our set coming up, we're going to have several more significant drills, if you will, during our practice evening nets. Thank you again.
Okay, I'd like to jump in here for a second.
ahead, Dan.
Rather than having people just jump in and doubling on top of each other and so forth, If you look at your participants thing, at the bottom, you'll see a place where you can raise your hand. We now got 4 people with their hands raised. Let's use that method. And then if you have other questions in between, you can put them in chat, and those will be addressed as well. So go back to, do you want us to take more questions now, Tom? You want to continue on?
Yeah, go right ahead. Why don't we take any additional fill in on that question, and then I'll move to the next question and keep going down the list.
Okay, Dan, WL7ZCOO. Hi, Dan. Take it away.
Well, good evening, everybody. Folks that get to know me end up saying Charlie, uh-oh, for my call. But what strikes me is that this group, since inception, in April, has been discussing the issue about ARES maybe waning in its effectiveness as a service for emergency management agencies. And I think what I'm seeing is that if it's your job, if you work for an agency that does emergency management, you have obligations that you fulfill, and you have management and supervision that in effect directs what you learn. In ARES, I think our only hope is that leadership be synonymous with mentoring and encouraging. Unless we get there, I don't think ARES is going to be revived the way that I think we all hope it will be in the bottom of our hearts. I just thought I'd mention that. And it's interesting because some of the folks that participate in these meetings are working with emergency management agencies, and their views are not diametrically opposed, but very different than those that sort of understand, well, our liveware, our workforce, are all volunteers. And what attracts them? Well, the challenge and mentoring and elmering and being able to mentor and elmer others if there's aspects of what's needed that they're good at. I've said a whole lot more than I should have, but thank you.
Thanks, Dan. I think Tom, W3TDH, has a comment.
Yes, sir. We support the hospital net that stretches clean across the section here. And that has both HF aspects and VHF aspects to it. We've gotten more and more hospitals to put in a station. We didn't just beg them for the space and put in a station for them. Although that's fraught with some difficulty when a professional company wants to sell them something, but they've been put in by the hospital. So we have a system of hospitals aligned with the state system of organizing hospitals. And one of the ways we got access is that the hospital evaluation program requires them to make provisions for emergency management, including alternate communications. And now the evaluation group, when they get there, they says, where's your alternative communications? They pull out a satellite phone that they didn't have an account for, and the satellites don't know them from Adam's off on and won't talk to them. They start looking for another solution. And it's good if you've been through the door offering to help in the last year or so without badgering them. They're busy people, but make sure your offer is still in their memory. And then when they get a little clobbered on that inspection, they're going to come looking for you.
Okay, that sounds good. Did you have a follow-up on that, Tom? If not, we'll go to the next question.
Yeah, I want to go to the next question because, whoops, let me go back here. Okay.
Paul, WD7ISA.
Go ahead.
Hello, Paul, you are muted.
Unmute. There I am. Am I there?
You are there.
Oh, okay. I went ahead and posted in chat. I wasn't sure if I was going to get there. I got my best helper at a net control party for a local ARES net. That person is also CERT. So I would wonder if we should help CERT members use their radios, because you still have to have proper speaking when you're on the radio. You still have to understand propagation. You could help them with GMRS and repeaters and maybe advance them to ham. I'm kind of unhappy to hear mailings didn't work for one group. I thought about mailing recent license holders or renewers, because I've noticed if you search the database, sometimes you'll find out 2 or 3 people with the same last name and address have joined all at the same day. Those might be people I would think of maybe mailing some letters to. Over to you.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Let's go to Larry.
Hey, thank you. It's Larry. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. We've had pretty good luck recruiting at Hamfest, back in the day when we could actually have them. And we also had probably better results recruiting at National Weather Service training sessions, which they do here in the Midwest every year. So that's pretty much how we get our members.
It's good. Thank you.
Okay, one last one. Laura, W3QA. You're muted there. W3QA.
I'm sorry about that. The space bar wasn't working for me. Was EC up at Chester County Aries Races in Chester County, Pennsylvania for a number of years. I think everybody's comments are spot on regarding recruiting and such, but the big issue is really a relationship with the agency. Pretty much what Barry was laying out. What we found was very successful, led by an EC who came before me, who was a very good salesman, by the way, and temperament, and that's probably why he was so successful. But we had a standing meeting with our agency every Friday afternoon, and FaceTime, whether it's for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes or a half an hour or whatever, is what really puts things together and makes things happen. You discuss outlook, and you discuss what has happened. You discuss the current status of the membership. And like everybody else has said, recruiting in any way that you can with people who would be predisposed to emergency type operations will work if you have an attractive place to belong. Everybody else is, I pat everybody else on the back. They made great comments. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Dan, if we can, we'll move on to the next volunteer selection question. And that is, if a selection process is used, and doesn't sound like anybody mentioned one, what process has been most effective? Does anybody use the selection process? Now, first, I'll ask our team. Oscar, do you?
Well, you see, there's a combination of having people with the proper training as well as we need the runners. The runners are the people who's going to bring the data, the people is going to, but they need as well training. And during the emergency of Maria, we have to train it on the spot. And so we don't have an actual selection process completely defined. I'm sure that there are probably more people than very well organized. But when a catastrophe comes, this what I'm trying to say is when a catastrophe comes, you have to deal with the survivals, the people that can stand and go out of the houses and help. Because doesn't mean if you do and create a lineup of personnel, they need to survive. And they need to survive if it's a business of family that they have to take care, or they just got trapped on the bridge that if the water has an overflow, or they have pretty big problems in their home, or they're injured. So when that happens, you have to deal with the people who really survive, and that is actually the natural selection rule, because that's when you have to deal with the real thing. So it's a mixture of both. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you, Oscar. WX2NJ, you have any comment?
Well, the only thing I could say, Tom, is it seems like we have the best success when people come to us looking to help rather than when I go out trying to recruit people.
Good point. Okay, Steve, KC3DSO.
In our county, we do not have a selection process. As long as they meet the minimum to join ARIES, the desire, and of course a license, then we'll let them join. And what we do is, of course, we immediately, not necessarily stick them with an Elmer, but, you know, we make assignments based upon their experience. We've had several people come from other counties or other locations outside Maryland, and they're very experienced, and we could put them right into the thick of things. So technically, no, we do not have a selection process, Tom.
Thank you, Steve. Lee, if you've joined us yet? Okay, I'll move on. Okay, let's open it up and see if anybody has has any questions in the participant questions.
Bob still has his hand up. I think that might have been from before.
Okay.
K0YB, do you want to come on?
N0YWB. Just wanted to mention here, this is tough. Anybody involved in this really needs to be trained in ICS protocols. And once they, you know, we have a lot of people that are gung-ho to get involved. And once they find out, oh, gee, there's a whole training regimen, and then they kind of lose interest. And maybe that's just a necessary evil to winnow out those that are willing to stick the course and be available during a real emergency. A month ago, we had a straight line wind event through Iowa that I was 25 miles south of Cedar Rapids, but Cedar Rapids took it hard. And there are 1,000 licensed hams in Cedar Rapids for a population of 300,000. So it's probably got the highest number of hams per capita in the nation. It's because of Rockwell Collins being there. But we had all these people that were gung-ho, but they lost power, they lost internet. Nobody knew what to do. DMR was down, D-Star was down, so they're down to using voice, and the voice repeaters kept working. They had battery backup, but most of the hams did not have battery backup, or their batteries ran dead in about 1 day, and this lasted for 2 weeks for most of them. And the real pros, those running ARES and other agencies, were just overwhelmed with domestic problems. It turned out that just ad hoc, the gung-ho hams found out that the most valuable service that they could provide was just informing people which gas stations still had gasoline and running pumps, and you know, where to go to get stuff for stores that were open during the emergency that lasted for about 3 weeks. It took 2 weeks to get power back to half the town. So anyway, that's just an observation. I don't know how to turn that into a selection process.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Okay, let's move on to the next question. I didn't see any other hands up, Dan.
Nope, we're fine.
Okay, what are we doing here? 1 second. Okay. This came up in our discussion, and Oscar alleviated to it. Have you found it effective to accept spontaneous arrival volunteers during an event? Should be an event. If so, what do you do with them? And Oscar, since you started to touch on that, I'm going to let you go first.
Thank you, Tom. I'm getting in trouble here. Actually, yes. I mean, there are people that they want people trained. We have been discussing this in this specific forum, and they have to have the ICS, and those are the ones that will run these stations and connect to the agencies and send the emails from the agencies. But definitely, one of the most important resources are the runners, the ones that brings the data, the ones that they are talking because they're already spread in the community and the impact community. We need those people. Those people they may not need to get out of their community. They have to work and report what's happening in that community. So we need that kind of help. And it can be anyone. Even if the source is good, it can be from CV, FRS, GMRS, technician, anyone giving the right information that we can corroborate those are important people, because we need to get that, take care of the citizens of that community that is impacted.
Oscar, thank you. And basically that aligns with some of the things is if they volunteer, we might be able to hook them into the organization permanently. And so it's a catch-22. Yeah, they don't have the training, so we can't use them, or do you accept them and have them work alongside somebody and pull them in? Good point. Stephen, Bob, WX2NJ. Since there's more than one Bob on here.
Yeah, when we have spontaneous type people during, let's say, a search or something like that, the best thing to do with them is pair them up with an experienced operator and have them help out the best they can. But definitely put them alongside somebody that knows what's going on so they can see what's happening and they can get a full appreciation of the event.
Thank you, Bob. Stephen, do you have anything to add?
Not really. We don't have an official policy. That's one of the things we've talked about. And if someone shows up during an incident, pretty much we'll do basically the same thing that Bob mentioned. We'll pair them up with someone. We're really reluctant to do that, to put them in the fray, handling any type of communications or being in a position alone. We really don't want to do that unless we're absolutely push comes to shove, because we don't know them. And you know, being a policeman for 30 years, it's not that I distrust people, but there's, you know, you just don't know. So, you know, we're gonna do what we can to put them to work. I mean, I heard of somebody at one of the bad storms a few years ago. A pair of hams showed up, and they were very well qualified, but they ended up taking out the trash for about a week. And serving food and things. You know, that's serious service right there. You know, when they show up and do something like that, you know, they don't have to get on the radio where they're going to go home. They still stayed and helped out. But, you know, we don't have a policy with it, but we try to pair them up if we know who they are and stuff like that. Is you got to be sure of who you're putting in the fray, you know.
Thank you, Stephen. I see a question from John, KG7 Whiskey Frank, Quebec. Go ahead, John.
Sorry, I had trouble unmuting. I was just going to say, for our group, our served agencies generally don't want the spontaneous volunteers. Certainly not in the radio rooms or the EOCs. So we definitely can't use them there. Unless they're badged and credentialed ahead of time, they're not getting into those facilities. And they may be able to be used out somewhere else, but they're not going to be able to be used in the facilities, particularly places like hospitals and stuff like that. They're not getting in. So that's our experience here.
Okay, that's a good point, John, that some people forget, but here again, there may be a position someplace else. Okay, thank you very much. Very good. I don't see anyone else in chat unless I'm missing something, Dan.
Nope, you're doing fine.
I'll move on. Okay, we're going to move into the what I'm calling the topic of training, and even some of the prior discussions started to lead into it. Some of the people in here know me and my relationship with training, so they shouldn't beat me up too much. What has been the best way to conduct training for, and we'd like you to, if it's different, for new members, for current members to maintain their skills, and as we just talked about, spontaneous arrival volunteers. Oscar, I'm going to start back with you again.
But I get to nail you back, and I'm happy that you asked that question. You know, one of the best things that is being done is what we're doing right here, number one. And we should call more people to attend these kind of meetings and because it do the kind of exercise that bring in new technology with WinLink and even how to solve problems and MVS antennas, and at the same time probably MacGyver situation that is coming in one of the future presentations. This kind of information is the one that should be trained everywhere. And we are just giving an example. I'm sure that there are plenty of people outside there who are ready to show their best skills. So definitely we have to develop those building blocks of skills and train the every operator, and depends on the operator. They will have good ones and excellent, or really champions. So training and knowing and adapting to the new era of technology is important, including, and not mean understanding. We need to know how to do HF and VHF, and even survive with packet, or even go with BARA. It's a whole legacy, and even knowing CW, I mean, this is also important, but it have to be an overall operator. So, you know, it have to be, we need to create this kind of champions and have more of this technology being brought into the general Hamming populations. Back to you.
Thank you, Oscar. Bob, WX2NJ, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, now that we have our new Aries task book, which is customized for our particular county, you know, we laid that out at several meetings prior to the pandemic, and people started working on it. We've had a lot of interest in NBEMS, sending messages. Also, our weekly training nets. I've been in this position now for 23 years, and we've been holding a weekly training net for those past 23 years. When I first got here, they had no training nets. They really had nothing. There was no way to even get an ID card or even be identified. And that's something that we've really pushed and get people involved, especially with the NBMS training. That's get people to pass messages, pass traffic, and just keep active. That's basically all I can say.
Thank you very much, Bob. And I'm going to add one more thing to yours, because I also joined your at least 3 weeks out of the month, you have a digital training net, and that has proven to help me learn digital better myself. So I appreciate that, what your team does too. So let's go over to Steve. Stephen, do you have anything unique down there?
Well, for new members, we assign them immediately the ICS classes, get their FEMA ID. We ask all of them to get WinLink accounts, which we believe is one of the most important things for them. And again, the Aries task book, we have a manual we call the HEROES, the Hospital Emergency Radio Operators, and we're revising it. And anyone assigned to any of the 9 facilities that covers inside the HEROES manual, they have to go through that before they're allowed to work in the facility. As far as current members, we got to change things up. And, you know, the new WinLink, making them do multiple forms, GPS locations, a lot of this stuff I got from Oliver's training classes that he's run. I mean, the LEX has got it down to a science, and we've pushed some stuff here and making them and keeping them busy during all the exercises. You know, we used to have them come out to exercises and they'd send 2 or 3 messages for the served agency. That's absurd. We had some people taking off 2 and 3 hours from work to come and work with us, and they sat there. So, you know, we're sending them multiple messages, you know, so now they're running probably 30 or 40 messages at a clip. And as far as the arrival, the spontaneous arrival volunteers, like I said, we might sit them down with somebody and let them sit there and watch and observe, but that's pretty much what we probably have them do.
Thank you very much, David. Okay, let's open it up.
Okay, Dave has got his hand up.
Great. Dave, KC9GZB.
Hey, good evening. Yes. You know, one of the things that I've been finding, not only with this, but at work, and that is you don't want to, especially with ongoing half day, even hours training, gets awful boring, awfully fast. Keep it in short bursts. You know, even our monthly RACES meetings, 15, maybe 20 minutes tops on a subject. Looking at the possibility of a YouTube channel that we can go and put small videos out there, things like that, where they're not having to commit lengthy time in one burst, I've found keeps it a lot more enjoyable.
Thank you, Dave. Now I'm going to add something on this, if you don't mind. As Section EC for Southern New Jersey, training is, in my opinion, is major part of my responsibility. And what we've done is we found out through conversation that the EC001 is a very good course, but some of our people didn't want to take the online course. So we mainly the section manager, myself, formed a training team, and that training team moved around the state and actually went to different locations. We went to 3 different locations, and taught that course. We then planned to do the 016 for leadership, and COVID-19 hit after we had the room scheduled and all the people scheduled and everything else. So we turned it into a Zoom session, and actually it worked pretty good. We did, I think, around 14 people, 12 from our own section, and 1 from Ohio and 1 from Northern New Jersey. So, but the point was it worked very well, but the way we did the last 001 and the 016 was more like a discussion like we're doing now, where it was a primary facilitator, and then we had another EC, in fact, that's where I picked on the WX2NJ so much, to join in with us and bring the practical side of some of the exercises. And that seemed to really get people interested in what we were doing. So just a different viewpoint, and it worked. And if somebody wants to know about it, I'll be happy to answer any emails on it. I didn't see other hands up, Dan. I'm going to move on to the next question.
I just want to let you know that Lee is now on board.
Oh, thank you. Lee, did you want to say anything about training? Not that I'm putting you on the spot, Lee.
Good evening. Yeah, just kind of on the spot. I just got my dinner. I just came in, so I didn't really see the presentation. However, I did work a lot with spontaneous volunteers recently. And I can tell you that if they're eager to learn and they are wanting to learn anything that you have to teach them, they will come back later on and ask for more training. So it looks like a negative spontaneous arrival volunteers, but it actually is an excellent pool of future candidates for your ARIES group. So I have to say that in a disaster, your resources are your resources, and you can use them. But 99% of the ones that I worked with came back and asked for more training. So
thank you, Lee, very much.
Yep, thank you.
You want to take some questions, Tom?
Yes, I didn't open it up because I.
Okay. N5 TCB in Texas.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. One thing, number one, I think, Zoom is a wonderful thing. And with COVID-19, I think it's something we need to look at. But, all of us are individuals. All of us have different strengths and weaknesses. So I think some things like hands-on is good. Some things like Zoom is good. Maybe for some people who are particularly shy, maybe one-on-one. I don't think we should just have 1 or 2 things. I think we need to have a whole toolbox full of training. And 2, last December, Oak Forest Amateur Radio Club did a Morse code demonstration at a Dickens Festival in Galveston. And we didn't even mention ham radio. We were just doing this as a historical STEM demo. The thing was, people were coming to us as we were pounding SOS on keyers, asking if we needed assistance, if ham radio was still in existence, and so on. I think we're going to have to have wider nets for our training and to get people. I'm going to let this back to the conversation. N5 TCB on the side.
Okay. I think we have another question from John KG7WFQ.
Rather than a question, it's really a comment which ties back to the earlier question, and that's on training that's available. Here in Washington, I'm in Western Washington. Washington and Oregon, most of the groups around here, rather than having their people take the EC001 course, there's another course offered here locally called by Oregon ACES, ACES, OregonACES.org, which is a 2-day course, a lot of hands-on, EMCOMM oriented, very good for new hams, especially, or people that are just getting into EMCOMM. You do it on one weekend and you're done instead of the 9-week-long EC001 session. And we found that to be, frankly, a better program. But we consider that to be the equivalent of EC001. But again, it's a mix of classroom, hands-on, programming radios, doing things like that. We have not been able to do it, however, in the current COVID environment, and we're in the process of trying to adapt it to Zoom, but the strong point is the hands-on, and that's very difficult to do on Zoom. That's it.
Thank you, John. Bob, K0YWB.
It's N0YWB.
Okay.
Tom's comment before Lee came back on made me think of something. You're talking about training teams. If each state had a team of volunteers willing to put on training and demonstrations, I know HamFest coordinators are usually desperate for forum presentations, people to put on something. So if those teams made their presentations and what they could do for like 2 1-hour sessions to HamFest coordinators 6 months ahead of time and get them on their agendas, that would be a great opportunity to get maybe people that had no idea what ARS does, and even non-hams aware of what services we provide. And when they're not doing the presentations, man a actual working WinLink station passing ICS 213 forms just to show what it's about.
Thank you. I see one more, Dan, and that's Don, K9DRW.
Yep. Am I on the air here?
Yes.
All right, fine. One comment, I had to go back a few slides, but what we do for our VE people, the new VEs, the ones that have never been hams before that pass, we give them free membership for a year or so. And our training involves, we're a combined RACES Aries group. And the ones that want to get a county ID, because it's our county EMA here in Lake County, Illinois, we require 100, 200, 700, 800, and the ARES, at least minimum, the basic. And a lot of our members have gone on to pick up ICS 300, 400, and even go through the COML course. So, and we do that because we want to know them. We want to know in advance what their capabilities are. And we want to exercise with them because, like I said in the chat, the last place you want to meet a new volunteer is at an emergency event. You want to know them in advance and see what they can do and make sure they're properly educated. So that's our comment. And beyond that, I want to know the league, at least when Mike Corey was there, was going to require a bunch of other FEMA courses for certification, and I'm not sure where that stands. If you could elaborate on that, Tom, that would help us out. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we follow, in our section, we follow the ARRL guidelines, and for level 1, level 2, level 3, and as long as people are working toward the guideline, they can get into the position. And if you, online, they list all the courses for each level. For the level 3 EC positions, assistant section, emergency coordinator positions, it's recommended that they have EC 016 and the FEMA Professional Development Series. That's what's on the website. So I'll move on to the next question.
We still have one more, John.
Oh, I didn't see that one. I'm sorry.
Okay, John, WG7WFQ.
I already went.
Oh, you already did. Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
Can I say something real quick?
Go ahead, Barry.
What we need is and I put this in the chat, a rapid training module, something that is 4 to 8 hours long for unaffiliated volunteers, people that haven't done the ICS courses on the basic level, for spontaneous volunteers, basically. Something like what the Red Cross uses when shelter managers. They recruit people that have no training, and in 6 hours or so, they're turned into shelter managers. And I think as long as people have a ham radio license, if we had something, a course like that that would run 4 to 8 hours, I think that would help a lot. Back to Net.
That's a good idea, Barry. Okay, let's move on to the next training question. I assume Oscar's going to watch my time. What training format, such as classroom, discussion, we kind of did this, discussion, hands-on events, and others are most effective? And I think most people answered that as they were answering the questions. I'll quickly go through the panel, but I think we covered that. Oscar, did you have anything to add on that?
Definitely, as we have adapted, it would be nice to have club meetings and even the Hamfest to have a couple hours training, things like that. That was before the COVID-19. But with the Zoom, people are covering with the Zoom sections to keep training and homeworks and practice, and try to help them at the same time how to figure out when they have to work with technology for computers, solving the problem with computer sound cards or installing the software as well. But again, it's a good time for testing and getting into the whole training of the different FEMA training as well. So I think we discussed this in several ways, and the best thing is also training with the small skills and antennas, coax, power supplies, radio, what's the radio configuration, all of it, and that because this is our job, but we need to be with compliance with the agencies as well. But definitely we have to be an excellent operator. So also that is an Elmering required for the first responders as well. So that is extremely important. Not every station is going to be the same. Not every catastrophe or impact by weather, earthquake, or whatever, or fire is not the same. So we have to adapt. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Oscar. Bob, WX2NJ, do you have anything to add on that?
Tom, I would say that the hands-on type training is probably the most effective. It seems like when we were having meetings, we would try to bring in things to demonstrate, whether it be putting a connector on, setting up a Go kit. Recently, we've been having these meetings, like I said, almost every Sunday morning, setting up NVIS antennas, HF equipment. It seems like people learn quite a bit from actually being there, doing it, solving the problems. It's one thing to talk about measuring standing wave ratio, but it's another thing to actually go out and do it. And same thing goes for connectors and things like that. One gentleman that was talking before kind of raised my interest on something. He said something that they were having dues waived for like a year, which raises a question in my mind. I'm just wondering how many areas groups out there actually have dues. We've never had dues, never will have dues. But it just kind of touched a nerve when they were talking about that. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you, Bob. I noticed the same thing. Okay, let's go over to Steve. Do you have anything to add about the training issues?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer of basically what you're saying here. You do a classroom, you show them how to do it, and then you have them do it. So for example, we use the Kenwood D710s as our primary rig. We have it at all of our facilities, Go kits and everything. So we'll set up the radios and we'll do a classroom on the item. We'll show them how to do it, to program it, to operate it, and then we have them do it. So it's a combination of the classroom discussion and hands-on.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Lee, you're on this first committee, whether you know it or not. You're on the panel, Lee, if you're there.
I see that now. All right.
You were warned.
Was I? Okay. All right, so comments about training format. Yeah, it's not, it should not be a requirement to have to take timed tests like ICS. It should not be a requirement to, you know, sit through an hour and a half, but sometimes that's exactly what we end up having to do. So I think the discussion about hands-on balances it out. You know, sometimes we have to, just to get, you know, the basic class that we need. But then we move on and we use that information. So yeah, it's a commitment, and it can be you know, it can be a deterrent, but training shouldn't be a deterrent. It should be, like I saw somebody in the chat said, it should be an opportunity, not a deterrent to anything that you want to do. So I think helping out, I think it's been covered, helping out the hams with their access to the materials and things like that is the best way to do it.
Thank you, Lee. I didn't see any hands up unless I missed them, Dan. So I'm going to move on to the next question.
Well, we got one, Don, W0AF, Iowa.
Go ahead. I didn't see it.
W0AF. Don?
W0AF.
Yeah.
How about now?
Now you're working.
You got me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, one of the things we've done is, you know, we've done like most clubs do. They'll go out in the parking lot and do something out in the parking lot or at a city park. One thing we did was I set it up so we went to specifically to a part of the county that I knew we weren't going to make any communications at. And we had a little set going on. And the guys out in the field had to figure out how to get the information back to the EOC. And that worked out pretty neat. We had talked about relaying information. Even with a Yagi, 2-meter handheld Yagi, we couldn't get back to the EOC. So they had to go out and set up a relay station. And to me, that's more practical because they are in the county and we could have an emergency out in that part of the county. And so that's one of the things we've done hands-on. That's it.
Thank you. I like that idea. Some of the people on here from my section might not appreciate that, but I do. Okay, fine. Let's go on to the next one. What events or exercises have been the best to enhance operators' overall skills? Now, some of the training we're talking about new people. I'm talking about the people who've been in there and you want to enhance their skills, get it better. Continuous improvement. Okay, team. I'm going to pick on Oscar again first.
You know, they say it clearly, hands-on and drills. And the drills not necessarily by group. It could be in teams of 2. They have to solve the problems with a team by themselves. Many times you don't want to send a single operator or responder. You want to send a team because they have to check themselves back to back and so they can survive. And this is one of the important parts. And you know, when you do the drill, can you add something to it? And this is something that I always recommend when we are developing new responders. Let's coordinate everything by ham radio. Don't pull out the cell phone. Because in a real situation, you will not have a cell phone. That would do a big enhancement how to survive and learn that if you forget something, you have to do it by radio, and you have to put that radio, VHF, UHF, and HF radio off. If you're missing something, try to get it back or try to fix it somehow. But those are the best way that you enhance the responders in their skills.
Thank you, Oscar. Let's go to Bob, WX2NJ. Do you have any?
Well, the one that probably opened my eyes the most, Tom, was recent fox hunt type exercises. It seems like all the experienced operators and even the ones that are just coming into the organization really enjoy fox hunts. And the more difficult you make them, the more intriguing you make them. It seems like people really get a kick out of it. Unfortunately, in every one of these, I've gotten to play the fox, and they seem to really enjoy it even more when I start throwing a wrench into the works. Like I start changing power level, I start rotating an antenna, and I start, messing these people up, and they really get a kick out of it, especially when they wind up finding me. But that's one thing.
Thank you, Bob, and I've been on one of those fox hunts, at least one of them. Okay, Steve, do you have any down there?
What events or exercises? I think the best things we do for our people is force them to use their problem-solving skills. We'll sit there, we'll turn the repeater off, we'll make them reroute traffic in a specific direction, and they have to figure out how to hop it through 3 places to get the other end of the county. I think it's basically anything that forces them to use their problem-solving skills has been the best for our people.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, last year, I shut down one of the Link computer systems in the section, and the people didn't know what they're going to do, but they figured it out. When the system shut down, they figured it out. So, good point. Lee, back to you.
All right, I'll speak to 2 things: passing traffic and training new net controls. I love the comment by Jim N0OQ in the chat. That is exactly how I teach it. The way you pass traffic in blue skies is exactly the way you're going to pass it in a disaster. The only difference is the content, and it should not be a surprise, and it should be familiar. And that's why we practice passing traffic. And then speaking to training new net control, what I like to do is help them build their toolkit, in that I teach them how to write a net script, what goes into a net script, why, and then how to, what you might want to do about checking on the spool, what you might want to do if you haven't heard it from somebody in a while, that kind of thing, just general topics that might come up. And then finally, how to close a net, and the proper way to do that, and then sit with them while they run the net, and be nothing but encouraging. And if they're building their toolkit to do it, they will come back and do it again. And I think that's one of in our groups is getting people to step up and take the more risky leadership type things, especially under fire. So I have found that to be a pretty good method myself, and I truly enjoy doing that.
Thank you, Lee. I see Dave, KC9GZB, has his hand up.
Yeah, hi, good evening again. And one of the things that we do is use our smaller public service events, the planned events. Those are good opportunities to get people into different roles. When we're doing the Chicago Marathon, we've got 3 or 4 different nets going. We're not going to throw somebody in as a net control operator or even a backup on that. But we have one 5K event every fall that we've been a participant in, and we bill that. We need maybe only a half dozen positions, but we put that out there for, again, new members, new net control operators. Hey, this is a good chance. It's not, you're not dealing with a whole lot of traffic. You're not dealing with a whole lot of issues. It's a good chance to sit and actually do it with somebody standing by their side, coaching them along as they go. So the small events are really great opportunities to bring people into different positions that they may not have done before.
That's a good point. Thank you very much. Okay, I do not see any other hands up. So did I miss somebody here, Dan?
Yeah, I got Dave, KC9GZB, Illinois.
Yeah, that was me already.
That was
all right.
That was and just a little anecdotal story on that. We did have one year where did have a runner get injured, had to get support and all that. Did not jump in for the new net operator, it's like, okay, here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to do. Go ahead and do it. And yes, even on emergencies like that, they can step up if the event is fairly well controlled.
Good. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to go into additional resources now. If you need additional resources, such as operators or equipment during a disaster, how do you go about acquiring them, meaning the resources? And the second part of this question is, do your leaders know the procedure for acquiring resources? And what I had behind this is, you know, as a section, the section know what they want to do, and all your ECs and your assistant ECs know the process. Oscar, you're number one.
I will tell you what I did, just to be very sincere. We made an assessment with the Red Cross of what was going on after Hurricane Maria. And once we got the assessment, I spent about a couple hours writing an email directly to headquarters, everybody over there in top of Mike Curry at that time, Ken, Rick Roderick, and Tom Gallagher. So definitely they knew what was going on here and that we needed help. And we request for radios, boot kits, and so on. And we got the extra thing over the operators of the force of 50. That as Andy said, there was 22, but at the end, they came out 25 because we got several volunteers from the Red Cross and South Boston Church as well. So definitely, you have to ask for help. You have to understand when the situation is out of your hand, you have to ask for help, and don't be shy, and actually work really well. We had, when we started after 3 days, we got about 150 operators across the island. And due to the crisis and the catastrophe, running out of money, power, gasoline, as somebody mentioned before, within 2 weeks, they were almost all of them gone. They needed to go back, missing in action because they needed to take care of their family. They didn't have money or gasoline to keep these stations running and things like that. So that's when extra resources from outside that they're not involved and they're not impacted by the catastrophe, with the proper training, they do help. Back to you, Ned.
Thank you. I'll go to Bob, the BX2NJ.
Hey, thank you, Tom. Well, I guess I'll have to talk about Sandy because when Sandy hit here, we got hit very hard. We needed additional equipment. The request went to ARRL leadership, specifically the section emergency coordinator, who put the request into the ARRL. They sent a courier down the next day with 6 operating stations, antennas, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess to answer your question, the request has to go through ARRL leadership to get that equipment. The one problem I had with it, which I always found to be very confusing, is that when I was done with the equipment, I had to get it back to the ARRL, and there was no real known procedure for that. I posed the question to the section emergency coordinator at the time and the section manager, and I really never got any response. I tried contacting the ARRL directly to Mike Corey several times, and I was soon to learn that ARRL headquarters doesn't really want to talk to an EC. Never responded back to me, which between you and me and everybody on this group, I thought was kind of rude, but I could have at least gotten a response saying, hey, go through your leadership to get this stuff back. So to make a long story short, I had to wind up hiring a courier to get it back up to the league. And that's the way we finally resolved this. A lot of the leadership, which was not you, Tom, at that time, really dropped the ball.
Yeah, the second part of that question, no one has approached yet, but I want to approach it, and then I'll turn it over to Stephen and Lee. And that is, this is a touchy subject with me. As I travel around the section, I kind of ask people questions. And I found out that, yeah, the ECs knew everything what to do. But if the EC is sick or absent or on vacation or not around, some of the assistants and some of the other leaders didn't know the procedure. And that's something that was a little disturbing to me. So, you know, you train to it is what I ended up doing. And I think the problem has been solved. But here again, that's the second part of the question that I wanted to just say it because I knew Bob was going to bring up Sandy. Stephen, do you have any points on this down in your session?
Well, if inside the section, if we needed assistance, we would hit the other ECs up. Our SEC, we basically have the procedure set up through him or myself as the ASEC to contact the other counties for assistance, whether it be radio operators or portable go kits and the such. We've never had a need to do that, but that would be our procedure. As far as all the ECs knowing the procedure, I can't, inside the section, I can't swear 100%. I think the majority of them do and are very active. I know our section manager, it's kind of funny, Bob said about those go kits. I think our section manager still has a couple from a deployment a few years ago that he never sent back. So I know he's got them available for us to use, but so I mean, I'd like to think that everybody knows how to do it. Yes.
Thank you, Stephen. You didn't bring up one thing that I thought you might bring up, Stephen, and it's something you and I are working on.
The Mid-Atlantic Aries mat.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, you know, that's what I referred to in the section. But yes, if we needed assistance outside the Maryland, DC section, we're running, Tom is a big part of this, the Mid-Atlantic Aries mat, and we're in the process of drafting up all the documents and training requirements and actually making a level 5 on the Aries task book related to the Mid-Atlantic Aries mat. So if any section were to get into dire straits, we have all the contacts of all the other section managers and SECs and a couple of phone calls, and we're able to share membership because we're going to all have commonality as far as training goes. And also each section is going to come up with a separate list on the additional training that that section may have. For example, the EPA and the Eastern Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania folks have FL Digi, and we're using WinLink. So we'd have to have some individual training. But you're right, Tom, that would be something for outside, if you needed assistance outside the section, yes.
Thank you. Lee, how about you?
All right, I've got kind of a slightly different angle on this, I think. First of all, in amateur radio, EMCOMM's leadership, we're all about resource management. That's what it's all about. And in amateur radio in general, when we're using our radios and things for EMCOMMs, we're usually involved in resource management. So what we do in Blue Skies is what we should be doing to practice resource management. And what we should be doing is, you're right about the 2 to 3 deep leadership. It's helpful. But what I do, a couple of techniques that I use, I get on other nets, whether it's the next county over or whether it's on EchoLink, and I check in regularly. That way I know who my resources are, who I am. And then locally or on these nets, I will ask a resource to do something. And I don't mean in a negative sense. I mean, as a resource, ask them to participate or ask them to give me their traffic report or whatever it is, so that I'm actually demonstrating how to manage a resource. And then we also, something that we kind of started recently, a couple of things are wide area nets. We don't have linked repeaters. And so what we do is called wide area nets. And what I do is I go out and I ask other counties that are far distant away to bring up their net and try to contact us. And there might be 2 or 3 counties in between. And so what I'm doing is I'm setting the stage for how to ask for resources. And recently, because of the major disaster that we recently had locally, we had a chance to talk to the surrounding states also, and they're going to be doing the same thing. Rather than giving me a list of their equipment and their people, they're going to be contacting their people on the other side of the river, going to be contacting people on our side of the river and actually talking to them and getting to know each other. So if you're managing your resources, what you're doing is you're asking for either assistance or you're asking for information or something like that. And I think the best way to do that is to practice it and make it an example during Blue Skies. And I know that's a slightly different approach, but based on the fact that we didn't have a choice. We didn't have the opportunity to, we didn't have the time, to get any new supplies in, and anybody that came in would have had to have been self-sufficient. So that wasn't an option. So what we did was we looked around at the resources that we did have, and we asked those resources to come out and join us. And that was our best model for that disaster.
Thank you, Lee. One thing that didn't come out that I kind of approach, and I teach it and communicate it to my ACs, is if an EC in a county has a problem, contact myself, which is the section emergency coordinator, or the section manager, and he agrees with this method. And we'll go help look for the resources for them, and then let them do their job of taking care of their problems in their county, so that they pass it up the line and let the leadership for the section to do the search. And if we can't find it from one of the adjacent counties, then we'll go to Aries Mat, or we'll go to another section, and we'll do all the legwork for them. And it's the same with equipment. And if an EC asks for equipment, the section leadership will make the contacts with ARRL headquarters if it's coming for Aries, and make the arrangements to get it down here, saving the EC to go back and do their job, what they have to do. So that's something that is promoted, and it's in most of the training courses, and it does work well, but sometimes people forget about it, and that's a good thing. I see one question from N2DV. Hi, John. We know each other.
Hey, Tom, we certainly do. I enjoyed your 016 class online. Thank you very much. Wanted to just comment on the additional resources, more in the area of equipment. So what we've done for Middlesex County, and just so everybody knows, I'm the DEC for Middlesex County. What we've done in Middlesex County is put together some Go kits that that were funded by our Office of Emergency Management, and they're nothing too fancy. They're some dual band radios, power supplies, antennas, and actually a laptop. So a little fancy, but all in a rolling Pelican case with some coax. And we have made the ECs in our county and the county OEM coordinators and the municipal coordinators aware that these are resources that are available, and we would make them available to any town that would need them. So, for instance, if towns are standing up shelters or something like that, and they need a Go kit for their shelter, we will make it available.
Very good, John. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, I didn't see anybody else with questions in there. Okay, I didn't see any other questions at the moment. Okay, I'll go on to the next question. And then I think we have to look at our time. We're now going into operations, and there's several subcategories in operations there. I put it into 4 categories from our brainstorming. And after that, we have one on leadership, and we have one on public relations, and one on safety. But we may not get to that time-wise, which we could, if people want, we can work with Dan's schedule and put in another one and ask you for questions in the future. What type of activities or methods, such as text, calls, meaning telephone calls, monitoring repeaters, or other methods are used for activation of your team? This goes all over the gamut, but this is something that is usually pretty important, especially with some of the events that are coming up. I know I talked to one EC someplace, I won't tell you where, who is going to do a cybersecurity one, and they're not going to have any phone service or text messages or anything for his event. So how does he activate it? Here's my problem. Oscar, I'm going to start with you again.
You see, thank you, Tom, because we, in our experience, we have a unique experience completely. There were no repeaters. There were no telephones. So this is when things goes really bad. And you know what we did? Everybody was in 146.52 megahertz. And we started with about 50 people. For several weeks, we had even the police department by hand transmitting the information from department to department. This is across the whole island, okay? 3 million people. This is not a small impact condition. And then it rises out about 300 people, 500 people during the evenings, passing the information for the community. So as you said, calls, I mean, text, that came out about 4 weeks after the hurricane impact. And they were activated by FEMA only, only the version 2 and text, simple text, no internet and very limited calls for the cell site that they start to put up. So again, 146.52, we got there, and then we have to contact people, and we pass a lot of traffic. By the way, it was amazing. I have to really say thank you for all the hams. We didn't have interference. It was a lot of respect, and it was a lot of relays of these messages being sent, and that make it even so responsible from the side of the operators. After that, we have also the English speaking operator that came from the Force of 50 and the Spanish speaking as well. And everybody have the same respect. There were no repeaters, and that I tell you, that was a completely, I mean, it probably will be the ideal training when nothing works. Back to you, Nat.
Thank you very much, Oscar. Bob, any comments?
Yes, Tom.
WX2NJ, go ahead.
Yeah, Tom. I was trying to find my icon for the microphone. Well, we have several. We use Groups.io email. If there's something going on, we get the word out through email. If it's something that's going to be serious, if there's some sort of put on alert, we'll also use a cell phone application called Team App. Most of our members have that, and that's worked very well in the past. I'll pick up my phone or a computer, and I'll put out an information and say such and such is happening. We've also come up with a recent situation where, well, Aries has 3 modes of operation: standby, alert, and activation. If we go into alert, we'll actually monitor a northern repeater for 15 minutes every 3 hours, and then we monitor a southern repeater on a half hour for 15 minutes every 3 hours. And we don't do that through the middle of the night, but we do it during the day. And if there's something that's going on, or if somebody has to get some information out, we would take advantage. And that repeater is manned by myself or one of my assistants. Obviously, if we're actually in an activation mode, we have nets on the air at all times, and we would drop that every 3 hour type routine. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you very much, Bob. Okay, Stephen, how's things go down in Maryland, DC?
Well, we have a couple of things that we use. Our Office of Emergency Management uses Everbridge, which I think quite a few places, I see it in the chat mentioned in there a couple of times. And all of our top 20 operators have been placed in there. So if the county needs help, they can activate us that way. But I think the bulk of our activations have been through phone calls and text messages. We also, I know there's a local county here that uses, not us, but they use a GroupMe on the smartphone app, and they said that thing has been fantastic. And we simply tell our people if there's a weather event, which we all know is coming, turn on the radio, listen up on the repeater, and listen for call outs. That's pretty much what we do.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, Lee.
Again, I've got a slightly different angle. When the derecho came through here, it wiped out our communications as the storm hit the western edge of the county, including television, radio, and National Weather Service. There were no measurements taken in our county for that storm. And there was no local reporting due to the lack of cell phone service And my internet just went down again. So we're still in some things currently, and that was more than a month ago. We still have about 1,200 people without internet currently. But what I like to see and what works best, I mean, obviously, if you have those methods, then use them. But if you don't, I want people to activate themselves and know what frequency to listen to and when to listen. And that means that they need to take responsibility for knowing how to activate without anybody telling them to activate. And I know that doesn't sound like it fits our training, but to use your skills and your training. And I don't mean deploy. I don't mean go where you're going to be causing problems. I mean, you need to activate. You need to get yourself ready. You need to go to your frequencies that you need to monitor. You need to be prepared to help out. And so I know, again, that's a slightly different take on it, but that's been my experience. And I do encourage our local folks to do that now.
Thank you, Lee. Your bandwidth is going a little crazy, Lee. Oscar, I'm going to let you go first, and then I pick up the other one.
Thank you, Tom, and sorry, guys. I agree with Lee when things goes really bad. The ham radio, they did activate themselves, and definitely, as I mentioned before, 146.52 and in 40 meters, 7.085, or we were meeting there, and then we went to the Caribbean net and the Hurricane net and talked to the other islands as well. Remember, we were hit really hard, and in many islands they were devastated completely as well. So there were a lot of missing stations, but that's the reason that because of the 146.52, people with bow fans, they were able to listen to our net. There were no repeaters on the air. No televisions, no radio, no cell sites. So all this technology was gone. So and that's the way that we make an incident map, because we were talking to many hams across the island. And that became very important for the Red Cross and FEMA to respond, because by the ham radio community was the only ones who was able to put an incident map, and that was on simplex across the whole island. So we built several stations, the GFO, at the DRO from the Red Cross, and also in the Power Authority, we have a very good station there that we were having all this information coming in. This is our experience, and that's the way we survive. And that's the way we were able to attend the needs of the citizens. Cello, we had it. No cell phone, doesn't work. Internet, no telephone or no cell sites. That's, again, I stress exactly what they have. And it doesn't matter what technology you have. When those things fails, fiber optic breaks, telephone lines are gone, a microwave antenna side to side, they're gone. The TV stations, the towers are on the floor. You have to survive with basic ham radio communications. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Oscar. We have hands up here from N0YWB, Bob.
Yeah, just mention our wide area repeater supports 2 PL tones. One is reserved strictly for emergency nets, and all the club members are told to leave your radio on that programmed channel. So, and that way you're not annoyed with local chatter.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm going to go to Dan in a minute, but I want to add something here. It is a good idea, whatever your procedure is, to test it. In other words, in the middle of a net, turn off the repeater. See what your people do. And I've experienced that. And that's what we got to do, because we've got to not just tell people, we got to force them to go do it. In other words, we talked about that in training about being hands-on. Well, we have to do that too with this. And, hurricanes seem to be out there again, but now is the time to do that, because it's a good thing to do this week's net. Dan, your hand is up. WL7COO.
Yeah, Tom, I respect the way you're wording your questions. And I'm just kind of curious about if there's going to be any analysis of the responses, or if your goal is to just get everybody to think about their environment and their situation. Because I did make a comment in the comments. There's no such thing as best answers to any of these, because it depends on where you are, who you're working with, what your topographic and infrastructure issues are. So, how do I say this? Recurring, and I'm learning every day from those Aries units around me that have been doing this for a lot longer than I have, and they have recurring exercises that always throw challenges at everybody from their newest members to their most experienced members. And I think Ollie's still here. I hope he is, because he's got this idea that if everything works on an exercise, you didn't try hard enough. You got to break things. And the whole thing is, ARRL is bifurcating amateurs in the field's supervision towards, upwards through the SEC and the section managers to ARRL. Well, at the same time, if they're in an area where there are authorities having jurisdiction that are willing to train and credential local amateurs, that's what those Aries members have to be focusing on, is servicing the needs of the local authority having jurisdiction. So it gets confusing, because sometimes it seems like, and I'm really anxious to see how ARRL shapes its new directorate of emergency communications, because we're, even in this group, which is now down to 81 people, we probably have at least a dozen or 20 different concepts of how to get stuff done in an emergency. And I would guess that those folks that have lived on the edge their whole life probably have a fair amount of experience and just sort of intuit what to do. Whereas others, where it's all just book learning, are going to be set back until they have trained with folks that deal with whatever kind of emergencies happen in that geographic area. So once again, you've challenged me to understand what we're trying to accomplish, and that's probably a very good thing. Thank you.
Dan, I think we're at a point now, and it's an hour and a half, and I think we have to stop the questions, and I'll sum up and then give it over to Dan. But thank you for that comment. The intent here is something that came out of the planning committee. It was to really use these questions to share best practices, to get people to tell how they do things and see however somebody else does, so we all learn. And so it was a way to just get learning among everybody. In the panel, I tried to pick people in the panel who I knew had different backgrounds and had different experiences deliberately to create an environment so people in the audience asked questions and added comments. So that was the whole concept that we were trying to get. And it did come out of our planning team, and it came rapidly, but it was something that was brewing, that's been brewing, and we've been talking about for a while. I'm going to stop here and say thank you. I still have more material, but it's unfair to keep going because it's starting to get late. People are dropping out. I will pose a question for everyone, and that question is, if you like this, put some comments on the reflector. If you want to have your question or your inquiry added to the list of a future discussion on this, send it to me. And my call, which is on the screen right now, Whiskey Bravo 2 Alpha Lima Juliet at arrl.net. It's easy enough to find. And I'll be happy to put it on the list, and I'll make sure I'll copy Dan as well so it gets in the records. Dan, it's back to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. For all that, we have a section, we have a reflector where many of these questions can be answered. There's over 500 members. Many of those are experts on WinLink, on disaster preparedness, all this stuff. It's a good place. So clear the top of your chat, and you'll see a link to that. If you're not already a member of SEC-Aries, I invite you to do that. It's a good way to keep in the know and ask the questions and keep going on that. Okay, and next week, we're going to have a little follow-up of what Tom did today, and it's going to be what we had originally planned for this week, and we had to change some things around. So it's the EMCOMM frequencies and band propagation for next Thursday, and I hope to see you guys here for that. It should be good. And with that, I want to make sure we haven't, anybody got any questions? Anybody got any, anything at all that they want to add or subtract?
Dan, briefly, there was a comment in the chat about a safety discussion.
Okay.
Okay, who had it?
Go ahead, Lee.
Tom, W3 for a safety discussion, scheduling of a safety discussion.
From Tom Horn.
Okay. I can tell you what I was going to ask, but where's Tom? Did he leave?
No, I didn't leave. I'm still here.
Okay.
You had mentioned that you might have some follow-on sessions when you could get them into the schedule. And one of the things I was hoping could be added to the schedule would be a discussion of the safety concerns for operators when they're sent out into the field, and how they can personally prepare themselves and maintain situational awareness and have the necessary tools in their thinking to keep from getting themselves in changing places with the victims or the citizens who are suffering is not a good idea. So you want to have a good idea how people can do the work and yet stay safe doing it.
Excellent topic. I made a note that if we do this again, to have that there. We may have to do some research, but what Dan was talking about, the reflector, there is some material on the reflector about safety issues, and it was put on there because of Lee's experience with the derecho that hit there in August. So it's around the August timeframe, and it was put on by myself. So it's actually some safety that relates to electrical wires down, generators, general preparation for storms, and that's information is there, and also what links to where the information came from. Okay, back to you, Dan.
Okay, your comments here, it will, and other comments in the chat will be gone into, we have a planning committee. It's a pretty good team. They do a good job, as you've seen the results here. These things will be discussed, and we'll try to bring them back. After the WinLink series, we'll be doing some other things, and maybe some follow-up on some of the stuff that we skimmed over or this kind of thing. That'd be up to the team to decide, but we'll work on it, that's for sure. Be sure to put your comments into the SEC-Aries reflector, that everybody gets to see that, and it's easier for us as a team to work with that. Okay, is there anything else?
Yeah, Dan. This is Don, K9DRW from Illinois. Is there any chance that we could have Gilbert on this?
I have reached out to Gilbert.
Emergency management, that'd be great.
Okay, I have reached out to Paul. I've reached out to him twice by email, a couple times by phone. He keeps putting this off, and I don't know why. I'm hoping he'll come on board. Another person who has not put his off is our new CEO. He says as soon as he gets his feet wet, he wants to come on here and talk to us, and that will probably be on the Wednesday schedule there. I will reach out to Paul again and see if he will be willing to join us. We can only ask, and we'll see what happens. But yes.
I'm looking for Gilbert, the new Director of Emergency Management for the league.
Yes, that's Paul Gilbert I'm talking about.
Well, okay, all right, sorry, first name versus middle name, okay.
Sorry. Okay, is there anything else? This has been a real good session. I appreciate everybody showing up here. I hope to see you next week. Put your suggestions out there. Let us know what you think, what we can do different, what we might be missing. We need to know that so we can give you what you need here. So with that, unless there's anything else from anybody, I'm going to close this down and see the best of 73s. And please, everybody, stay safe.
Thank you all in 73s.